Hello, social media. Hello, everybody. I am so happy to be here talking to you today. So, wherever you may be, welcome. I'm just so happy to be talking to you and to be in your presence. So, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much. Welcome to Lakitatsharpe's famous, exclusive, inspirational channel. Welcome to one of the greatest shows in the universe. So I am so happy that you guys are here. So I welcome you. Hello now. Hey now. So here we are. Check out my books over at Amazon.com. Check out two of my life stories over at Amazon.com. Check out Unstoppable and check out the Lakita T. Sharpe success story from struggle to success. So check out, these books. And also, if you want to pay your tithes and your offerings and sow a seed, feel free to check out the description box and to sow your seeds into the ministry. So I thank you so much, and also add your email address to my website and receive the updated emails and blogs and everything. So yes, here we are. I am so happy to just be in the house on today. So we're going to talk about sometimes we may find ourselves in unpleasant situations. Sometimes we may find ourselves in unpleasant situations. Well, first of all, I have a relative that has fallen ill, and I have had to go to the hospital and visit them and to, support the family in the ways that needed to be supported. And when it comes to hospitals, I am not a fan of hospitals. I truly am not. And it's like ever since I became ill, when I endured my mental illness and went through those situations, and it's like after that, I'm like, oh my God, I am just not a hospital person. But, lately, I have been having to go to the hospital and to, do what needs to be done, and so pretty much I just had to make the situation work for me and make it, work in my favor where I, enjoy the scenery in the hospital and, maybe drink a cup of coffee or something, or, put my mind on other things and do some work, while I am helping out with a relative or whatever. So the thing is, like, I had to take an unpleasant situation and make it more fit, and to look at the positive and look at the positive in the situation, and so yeah, so sometimes we may find ourselves in unpleasant situations. And for another example is that I pulled up in a parking lot, right? And as I pulled up in this parking lot, there were like four homeless people just sleeping on the street. Plus, there's a homeless person in the car sleeping. So surrounding me were just people, drunk with alcohol, people who were, not trying to make their lives better. And it just, all of that was just surrounding me. And just the other day, being in this parking lot, people were arguing and just going back at each other and just fussing, the homeless people. And I'm like, what is the point of arguing? What is the point of fussing? What does that do? Arguing does nothing to anybody, and it adds no days to your life. Literally, it's like it takes away from you when you're just stuck arguing and fussing all the time. That does nothing for your health. So yes, we're like, what can I say? You gotta hold back and hold back the anger, and work on anger issues. If you a person who have anger issues and dealing with that's situations that need to be worked on. So anyway, I'm in this parking lot, and I'm looking at my surroundings and looking at this, and it's just making me feel a certain way. Like it's just making me feel like, here I am, I'm dealing with the hospital situation, and then I'm in this other situation that I'm like dealing with, and then I'm like, okay, this is not making me, I am being affected by my surroundings. These are negative situations, and I'm like, it's starting to weigh on me, and when it comes to my happiness and my joy, that's my happiness and joy is up here. So that's always the first. And if you're standing in my way of my happiness and my joy, you gotta go. It doesn't matter who it is, you gotta go. Gotta go. Or gotta set boundaries or something. Something gotta give. Because my happiness and my joy is everything to me. And it's everything to God as well. So yeah. So anyway, sometimes we may find ourselves, we can be happy and joy for people. We can be happy and joyful people, and somehow life will bring situations our way that can be very unpleasant. And we are having to deal with unpleasant situations, but at the end of the day, it's how we respond, how we react, whether we are still keeping a sense of humor, and joking and having a sense of humor through, even through the bad, even through, whatever may go on, we still joke about it. We still laughing. We're still having a good time. And doesn't matter what it is. And we're just, we're looking at the pleasant of the situation. There's always a silver lining. I think silver lining meaning, a positive. So it's always like looking at the silver lining of the situation and, a positive of the situation. You get what I'm saying? So it happens. Sometimes we find ourselves in unpleasant situations, and you're like, okay, how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to make this not break me? How am I going to get through having to work with these people and I am, not feeling them? I'm not feeling the energy. I'm not feeling the situation. And I'm like, how am I going to deal with this? Or you're like, how am I going to deal with this? Now, it's funny that we are talking about unpleasant situations, because now my cat is just throwing up over on my birthday table. Literally, it's a pretty pink table, and now she has just vomited throughout the whole table. So speaking of negative situation in a, sometimes dealing with a negative situation, speaking of it at that exact moment. So, yeah, and we're finding ourselves dealing with certain situations. There's someone in my where I stay, in my building, we have a hallway light, and for some reason this person always turns it off, and the other people cannot see to get into the apartment, because of this one person that constantly just turns it off all the time just to turn it off. So it's like we're having to deal with that. So pretty much that's the situation as well. And so sometimes you find yourself in situations you're like, okay, whoo. So there's been a lot of times where I am so happy with my life and happy being and just happy with my life and who I am, where I am at, as a person, as a being, and, you know, being me, and my life decisions, you know. But then the surroundings of everybody else, sometimes that seems to affect me, because the people around me, they're unhappy, they are not where they want to be in life, you know, they choose to live a certain way, and you choose to live a life of faith, a life of, you know, you choose to live how you live, and you're doing everything you can do to make it to the next level in your life, and to be honest with you, you are you can't even really worry about anybody else. When you are on a success journey, when you are on a journey, sometimes we want to pull everybody with us to go up this ladder. We want to pull everybody with us to go up this success ladder. And I think it's taken me a while to realize that everybody can't go with you. It's taken me a while to realize that maybe they don't want to go, or maybe they're just so stubborn in their ways that they don't want to grow, they don't want to advance, they don't want to work on themselves. And I always just was like trying to grab people to take with me there, as I am rising and as I am moving forward, and going up higher, and they are literally, kind of like stand here. You are here and they are right here, and you keep talking to them, trying to pull them up with you. And some people don't want to go. Some people, they just happy in their own funk. They are just happy being stagnant. They're happy just being right there, and they're just not on that success ladder. And it's hard because you when you love people, your family, or you love people, you want to see people grow. You want to see people elevate. But you can't save everybody. Everybody is not meant to be taken to the top with you. Sometimes you got to go to the top by yourself, you know, and God will remove everybody out the way that He doesn't want to be there. Some people they started off with you, but they can't go and they can't end with you. They can't rise with you. They can't, go with you. So that can be a little hard, and that can be a little tough, because you think that since they started off with you, they can go with you, and so like I say, sometimes, we find ourselves in an unpleasant situation, but it's how we respond, it's how we choose to act. And it's okay to remove yourself out of a situation if you can, if it's making you feel a certain way, that you don't have to sit there and just take it. In some cases we can move and we can, kind of maneuver around it. You get what I'm saying? That is my time. I'm getting limited. I will see you guys in the next video. We are the chosen ones.